Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission Planning Meeting. It is presently Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and it is 6:01 PM. In our study session, we will begin with item A1, a discussion of regular agenda items. And that takes us right over to item C1, consider approval of the December 11th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any typos, edits, errors? All right, seeing none, thank you, staff, for excellent minutes. We will move on to our public hearing. Item D1, conduct a public hearing and consider the request to rezone approximately 2.62 acres of land located at the southwest corner of Golfing Green Drive and Josie Lane from Plan Development District Number 10 and Office District O to Plan Development District Number 109 to allow townhome development and establish related development standards and take appropriate action.
Any questions on this item? It is a rezoning for 41 new townhome units at Josie and Golfing Green.
Well, there are some houses that would have to be, do you know, have those all been purchased? And then another commercial building there, is that all?
Yes,
bought?
3 duplex units in the office building are all owned by the applicant.
And are those for purchase or are they rentals?
They'll be platted as individual lots. My understanding is they'll be for sale, but the applicant will be here as well.
Okay.
Is this going to be one of these townhome for rent projects? Like I think we got snookered into last year?
I think that's what she was just asking. We'll have to ask it downstairs. We'll ask the applicant.
Yeah, my understanding is that they'll be for sale. They'll definitely be platted as individual lots that can be sold. We can't control whether the owner actually sells each one or maintains them, but my understanding is they will be for sale.
Is the city providing any assistance in infrastructure, any funding in any way?
Not for infrastructure. The corner of the property is currently owned by the City of Farmers Branch, and so there is a purchase agreement that's been authorized by council. If the zoning request is approved, then that property would be sold to the applicant, but beyond that, there aren't any incentives or infrastructure assistance.
Thank you.
It looked like a pretty small little corner there.
Yeah, 0.9 acres. Mhm. Yes.
I couldn't tell from the site plan. Does this have a wall around it?
There's a retaining wall with a screening fence along the southern property boundary.
What about the front along Rawhide?
Along Rawhide, there's a retaining wall there as well, but not a screening fence or anything. Because of the grade change on that property, there will be a retaining wall there.
And Sarah, that's similar to a question I was going to ask. I was speaking with a resident who also lives off of Josie Lane, who had unfortunately an errant motorist who drove through his fence. So I know that sometimes at speed we've seen that all over. I saw it on Pebble Beach. One of my neighbors had someone drive through their fence as well. So I was looking at that too, and it may not, it looks like it's probably sufficient, or, we hope none of those things happen, but just a consideration that we might even share with the applicant in terms of them doing their due diligence from a safety
Is
perspective.
that the elevations?
Yes.
I think there's mention in the documentation about them doing an 8-foot sidewalk along Josie.
Josie
that-
and Golfing Green.
Has that been discussed with Shane and his group? Because I know they're planning some adjustments for the trails. We have the master trails plan, and I think that area, that corner is
Yes.
planned to have some big adjustments there.
Yeah, that's
Is this going to
definitely
impact that in any way, or has that been worked out?
This has definitely been reviewed by our sustainability team, including Shane, and compared to the plans for the
I just hate
trails.
to put in a brand-new 8-foot sidewalk and
Right.
they tear it up to do
No,
the
it's,
trail
it's
stuff.
consistent with what's
Okay.
planned. I think the improvements for the crossing across
Right.
Josie Lane is the big
Right.
focus,
Yeah.
but the sidewalks are in
Sense.
alignment.
That's great, thanks.
Any other questions?
Is there any kind of runoff plan, drainage plans for this?
Yes, the applicant has provided a preliminary utility and drainage plan that do meet the city's requirements for drainage. We actually have our Public Works, our city engineer, here as well to answer questions.
And then has there been any opposition letters received over it?
No, we haven't received any correspondence for this case.
Do we know the potential price range of these homes?
That would be a great question for the applicant, and he'll be here for the 7 o'clock meeting.
It looks like there's just a 10-foot setback along Josie Lane. Is that consistent with other city regulations for residential property setting back from a busy boulevard?
This case is a little unique since we're creating a new planned development district, so there are no necessarily setback guidelines in place already. They're kind of customized based on the design. But based on other townhome developments that have gone in, that's an appropriate setback.
So it's consistent with other
Yes.
similar projects in the city?
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I mean,
Oh, I'm done. Go ahead.
Is this development included in the mobile food unit program that we're going to be discussing? Is that?
That is a great
so
question.
Would they be able to park a food truck in that
The-
area, or I don't know how that?
Oh, during construction?
Well,
The
even
site-
after, because we're going to be talking about food trucks, right, in the areas they can do food trucks throughout the city, and I'm just wondering if that particular development is included in that food
Right.
truck zone, and how
It's
that
a-
would work with the private park that they have there, and
Sure. No, it's a great question. We used the alcohol overlay district boundaries for the food truck overlay as well. And it does include this site, I think, because there's a commercial use on it currently. With the new proposed food truck regulations, any residential development would not qualify for a
Okay.
food truck to be parked there unless they were having a private resident
Sure.
event. But
okay.
yes.
That brings up a good point. Supposing the city decided to build at some point in the future another lighted park in front of this project, how do we protect the future purchasers of these townhomes so something like that doesn't happen? I've already heard about problems with the new park from the people that live across the street.
You're concerned from a lighting perspective, just that
Yeah.
pollution? Currently, there are no plans for anything like that at Rawhide Park. If
Well,
there were.
I know, but
Right,
you see where I'm going, though. I mean,
sure.
Well, I mean, we
I
would,
don't see where you're going.
Well, I mean, there weren't any plans for a lighted park up until 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, and now those people in those 20-something, $400,000 townhomes across the street get to watch those lights every night till 10 o'clock. Does that affect property values?
Proximity to a park usually increases property values statistically.
Another, if a proposal like that did come into play, I would expect there to be some sort of public engagement process prior to
Yeah, there'd have
finalizing the
to be-
designs as well.
there'd have to be a public engagement. I mean, some sort of process before, anyone puts in a brand new park, especially
Well, the
across.
park is right across the street.
Well, I mean, that's
All that
true.
property is park.
But I mean, as far as like all the equipment and everything that would go in something, I mean, that obviously. is
See, he's
very
talking about
expensive.
parking in food trucks.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if I'm buying a $600,000 or $700,000 townhome,
Right.
do I want to have food trucks and alcohol sales and all that interfering with my one entrance into my townhome facility across the street? I mean, how do we
Well,
as
again,
a city
something-
protect
yeah,
that
some-
from happening?
Something like this again, kind of what they had mentioned earlier, is that food trucks wouldn't just be allowed to run amok like in this area and just start serving folks. I mean, if they wanted to have a private event like for their residents with a food truck, that is a completely different story. But you're allowed to do that anywhere in our city. This does fall within that overlay district, but the whole point of the food truck is really to contract or get into an agreement with an existing business where you'll have access to restrooms and so on and so forth. So, no, I don't think food trucks, we're not too concerned about that in this location. But I do hear you, like if a new park, and I shouldn't say new park, because you're right, there's an existing park right across the street. But if new, like, lighted equipment or something were to go across the street,
I'm just thinking higher the future
Sure.
purchases of property protected.
I gotcha.
I mean, because we're talking about rezoning. Is now a time to address those kind of issues with some kind of caveat in the
Well,
zoning?
I don't think we would be able to really do that, only because, again, this property isn't up for I mean, this property is up for rezoning, but I can't restrict what goes across the street from it necessarily. What's across the street from it is a city park, so, I mean, that's where, again, public engagement, city council, this commission, you know, this is where, yeah, we would want to have those types of discussions, only when it does happen. You know, at this point, there's no plans for anything like that, so just to ensure I don't want any rumors or anything started here. You know, rumors, adding more lighted, you know, equipment or anything like that. So, but no, point taken on that, Harold, for sure, Commissioner.
I did take a look at, you know, although I realize this will be a planned development and so therefore not falling under our policies and recommendations around multifamily. I did take a look at that and I didn't see anything that was a huge inconsistency, but I was just curious if staff does a similar check. It would seem likely, and if there was anything that arose from such an analysis.
Sure. Not necessarily the multifamily development plan, but our comprehensive plan actually has a lot of direction for the Four Corners area and design principles to incorporate there. So we did review that against the site plan and considerations like buildings located closer to the street, pedestrian amenities and connections there definitely are applicable with the site plan, and that's consistent with the comprehensive plan. And similar qualities are mirrored in the multifamily policy,
Yeah.
but
My analysis was very similar, in which, you know, I was looking at, you know, the dedicated green space, the, you know, pedestrian amenities, et cetera. So,
definitely.
Commissioners, any further questions, comments for staff?
If I'm reading the rendering correctly, it looks like the only entrance to the parking is off of Rawhide or Golfing Green?
Golfing green.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
there's no egress or entrance directly onto Josie.
I think I read there was emergency access, right?
Yes, there will be like a grass paver system installed to provide emergency fire access, but no vehicular access.
Okay.
Are they going to have access to the alley behind them?
Yes.
Yep.
There's an existing entrance to that alley that's part of the subject property, so it'll be removed with construction, but an easement will be dedicated, allowing people to enter through the townhome entrance and connect to that alley.
Can the public have access to that alley behind them? I mean, I know where the alley is, but I'm
Sure.
thinking there's a way you can drive down from the west and drive all the way down the alley. Could that be a
Right.
problem?
It's platted as an access and utility easement, so there is access to the rear of all those units and also to drive through.
Sarah, we look forward to it. Thank you. All right, that takes us to item D2. Conduct a public hearing, consider the request to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance by amendment, Article 2, zoning districts and uses, Section 2.4, permitted uses by amending in specified districts by amending Article 5, by adding Section 5.8, mobile food unit overlay districts, and by amending Article 7, definitions, Section 2.3, definitions of uses, by deleting the definition for mobile food preparation vehicle and adding the definition for mobile food unit, and take appropriate action. Lily?
Good evening, Commissioners. I can answer any questions that you might have about this item.
Yeah, so the zone that is at the station area, are those city-owned lots? that,
Some of those are,
and,
some of
and
those lots are.
it's a fairly small little area there. I just wondered how that goes.
Yeah, I think the lot far to the west, I'm trying to find the map right now. And Lily, you might correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, when I'm looking at this, the corner of Denton and Valley View, that initial lot where where there's a trail that's running through there, yeah, that is a city-owned lot. And then the rest of it should be privately owned. I don't know if I can show you, but it, like this
Right.
lot, the green one,
Mhm.
is essentially city-owned. Yeah.
And not going across, didn't drive along I-35 up a little north there. That it's kind of that a little bit of a no man's land there. I know we're building some new, like a hotel. Just sort of picked a very small little footprint there, and there was nothing else around there that seemed like it would also. I'm just curious as just how you sort of dialed into that little area. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just based on what was considered the Mustang Station area.
Okay.
Not to say that we couldn't expand upon this. Absolutely. I think we're kind of doing baby steps here. Like we're starting at kind of a small area just to see if this is where everyone feels comfortable. But I think we're always open to, looking at other areas also as well.
Okay.
But initially, this is what's proposed. And I think, Lily, we did talk to council about these areas also. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yes, Marcos is right. These are all areas that were identified by council in our discussion as wanting them to, or they wanted those to be added into with the entertainment overlay as well. And as Sarah said previously, these are all areas identified as either the beer and wine overlay or the alcohol on premises overlay as well. So these are all areas with similar step categories in the comp plan. So if there might be some outlier lots that are outside of it, but these are the ones that we've identified with the best uses.
So they serve alcohol and then consume it on that specific lot?
That's more than likely what they would need to do, yeah. I mean, if what you're saying also is that if this was all following, the on-premise boundaries,
Mhm.
then ideally, it stays there, it stays like on-premise in that area.
Right.
For that. However they end up doing that agreement, or if, a food truck does an agreement with one of these private businesses, that's more than likely what we're gonna have to see. Now, again, the only thing that I would have concerns about, like with the food truck, I'm not exactly sure how often food trucks actually serve alcohol, but I think that was part of our discussions where, I'm not even sure if they can or not.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen like where food trucks actually, so really the alcohol, if there's alcohol being served or consumed, it's really the businesses that are the primary
Where the truck
businesses
is
that are already
parked,
there.
usually.
Right, exactly, so, yeah,
Okay.
hopefully that answers.
And then if you, could it, like looking over to the east side, much larger area, could it ever be a situation where a food truck would have maybe an unfair advantage over a brick and mortar restaurant because they might have lower cost of operation? If that ever happened, could there be a mechanism for the brick and mortar to not challenge it, but
Make a move.
do something, because it just seems like you could plug something in here with very low overhead and to a potentially unfair advantage.
No, I mean, I don't think we haven't really thought about, any type of mechanism per se that would be beneficial to like maybe a brick and mortar versus, and
Okay,
keep
just
in
a-
mind, these food trucks, they wouldn't be able to just find a vacant lot and open
Right.
up shop. They would still have to work
Could
with
be
a
over
brick
the,
and
well, it
mortar.
could be over the street. It'd be across
Okay.
the street from the brick and mortar. It's just like on a rare case by case, is there a mechanism that potentially they could challenge it based on some form of unfair competitive advantage?
No, I mean, again, we want to see healthy competition, obviously, and I
Sure.
think the more type of variety that you add, it kind of ups everyone's game too, in a way. But no, I mean, again, we don't really have. There's not like a mechanism per se that's set in place that somebody can challenge or call upon or anything like
But it is the case, if I read it right, that they have to work collaboratively with an existing business in order to
Oh, yeah.
secure the parking space
Oh,
and
yeah,
that
no,
sort of thing.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Sure, it could be an
challenges.
adjacent
Yeah.
business,
Not
but,
necessarily across the street.
right. But they would be still partnering with a business in order to,
They'd be partnering with somebody across the street, not
Right.
them. They
Right.
could still have a food truck.
Yeah.
Show up that they were not really, didn't know what was happening or something.
Yeah.
I will also, sorry to interrupt, but I will also add that the food trucks, they will be under set standards of hours of operation. They must operate within the hours of that primary business. So if a restaurant or let's say a mattress store added a food truck and it's causing issues for the restaurant across the street, they're able to expand their hours. They're able to speak with the property owner and see if the property owner, understands their frustrations and their complaints, and there's flexibility in the agreement.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, I guess if a mattress company closes at 5 and they've got a food truck, their food truck's closing at 5. They're just got to be off the property or gone back to the commissary, by that time. So, again, we don't really know. Ultimately, we're hoping that this whole thing works out very smoothly. And again, we're just trying to transition into the whole idea of having food trucks within our city and having kind of a healthy compromise and a healthy guideline that these folks can follow and be successful, So, but we're always open to more ideas, and we definitely want to hear from you guys on a lot of this. So,
I mean, currently they're allowed to operate because we have no ordinance.
they're technically prohibited
They
in
are
all
prohibited.
zone districts right now. Yeah, technically, even though when HB, and I know Lily will probably you'll go into some detail on this through the presentation, but when that last bill passed, it removed the city's health inspection side of it. It all ran through Dallas now. So for the longest time, us as zoning or the planning department wasn't really looking at it from a land use perspective. They were only being permitted just through our health department. But now that that's gone, there is no permitting within the city. And so now we feel now's a good time to go in and make sure that if we're going to allow for food trucks to come into the city, that we have some guidelines and we've got a good base for these folks to operate successfully.
How are ice cream men, how do they fit into this? Are they a food truck or not a food truck?
I'll let Lily answer that, but it should be a food truck.
Good question.
If it's a van or it's a trailer that's equipped that meets the definition versus a push cart is excluded from the definition that we're proposing.
What, is a bicycle a push cart?
Yes, it would be considered.
This is strictly for vehicles only. So we're not, as far as push carts, those are all prohibited in our city.
Prohibited.
If we go with this definition. Now, again, it isn't to say that this definition can't be altered by the time it gets to city council, but I think that was the direction we received from talking to P&Z and talking to city council, that they were looking at it for more of, if we're gonna do this, this is gonna be strictly made for food trucks within certain overlays.
Are push carts prohibited today already?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
Push carts would be prohibited today as well, because it's not defined anywhere.
So this isn't affecting that in any way?
Mhm.
other questions, concerns?
No, this looks good.
I appreciate the research that went into it. I could clearly see from the last presentation and looking at all the different cities and how you've pulled together some of the most crucial elements to, again, as you said, hopefully smoothly put together something that will work for us here in Farmers Branch.
Thank you.
All right, well, that then takes us to, sorry, here we are. Back to items A2. We will receive an update from the Planning and Zoning Commission Landscaping and Tree Preservation Subcommittee. Heidi, take it away.
Feel free to elaborate on this. I'm sure there's more detail, but it is, we have a draft going before city council tomorrow. That's all I have.
No, that's perfect. No, that's right.
and-
She's absolutely correct. Yeah,
Yes.
it'll go
Got a few
tomorrow.
rounds.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, been a few rounds on top of that. But yes, I'm sorry, it's going before city council tomorrow.
We're excited.
Fantastic. Yeah, I took it. Thank you, Brian, for sending that over. I did have a chance to take a look at that. And again, I could tell a lot of editing that went into that because I saw some of my favorite plants now. So I was very excited. So lots going there for sure. All right. And thank you also for serving that capacity. I know that's been a lot. So that takes us to item A3, discuss agenda items for future Planning and Zoning Commission consideration. Any items for future Planning and Zoning Commission consideration?
Drainage,
All
I
right,
mean, unless you want to call it something else.
that seems appropriate. Drainage, stormwater maintenance.
If this mobile food unit were to pass and get through, could we add a future reevaluation just to see how it's going, say in like a year from now, if it gets
Sure.
through, and just to revisit it? Hey, is it working? Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to change it? Do we need to change something?
Yeah, great idea.
Or it's working great, keep going.
No problem.
All right. Any other comments, ideas? All right, well, with that, that will end our study session. It's presently
We
6.
done the minutes?
We did discuss them at the beginning. Did you have a correction
No,
or?
I just didn't remember if we did.
Okay, yeah. That will take us to 6:27. We'll conclude and we will meet downstairs at 7. Thank you all.
Oh.
Thank you.
Evening and welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is presently 7 o'clock, Monday, January 22nd, 2024. I'd like to begin by first thanking the commissioners for their service. Item B will be up first. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not present on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen's comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the Director of Planning for further study or action, briefly state existing city policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. As we have no citizen comment forms this evening, we will commence with our regular agenda items. Up first, item C1, consider approval of the December 11th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners.
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you.
I second the move.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? That carries.
Over here on the right, he raised his hand for something. I'm not sure. To the right. He was raising his hand. I don't know if he wanted to speak. Citizens comment.
Oh, okay, thank you. Is that a little better? I know we have a new system in the auditorium. Is that a little better? Thank you for that. All right, that carried, so thank you all for approving the minutes. First, we'll have a public hearing, item D1. Conduct a public hearing and consider the request to rezone approximately 2.62 acres of land located at the southwest corner of Golfing Green Drive and Josie Lane from Plan Development District Number 10, PD 10, and Office District to Plan Development District Number 109, PD 109, to allow townhome development and establish related development standards and take appropriate action. Thank you, Sarah.
Good evening, Commissioners. This site includes 2.6 acres of land located at the southwest corner of Golfing Green Drive and Josie Lane. The site is developed with 3 existing duplex units facing Golfing Green and 1 office building facing Josie Lane. And the corner of the site is currently vacant and owned by the City of Farmers Branch. The zoning on the site is currently split between Plan Development PD 10 and Office District O. And the applicant is proposing to rezone the property to Plan Development District PD 109 to allow townhome development. This is the proposed site plan for the development. You can see that 6 total buildings are proposed, 2 of which would face Golfing Green Drive, 2 would face Josie Lane, and 2 would face internal to a pocket park. A number of other amenities are proposed, including streetscape enhancements and landscaping throughout the site. This is the proposed elevation view of the townhome units. You can see that each unit would be 3 stories in height. The primary building material would be brick with some cementitious boards at the top, and a variety of balconies are being provided for architectural variation, including recessed, projecting, and wraparound balconies. Each unit would be 3 bedrooms. This is the proposed landscape plan for the development. You can see that vehicular access to the site would be limited to a single drive off of Golfing Green, shown on the screen here. A secondary access point was proposed along Josie Lane, and this would be for emergency access only. In addition, there is an existing alleyway that provides access to the homes facing Golfing Green Drive, its rear access. And because the entry to this alley would be removed with construction of the townhomes, the applicant will be dedicating a public access easement to allow homeowners to access the alley from this drive. In terms of parking, a total of 111 spaces are provided. This includes 82 attached spaces which is 2 per unit as garage parking. And then 29 total surface spaces. You can see the majority are clustered here by the pocket park, and then some additional parallel spaces at the rear of the property and along the edges there. For landscaping, extensive landscaping is proposed throughout the site along both frontages for Golfing Green and Josie, as well as within the pocket park. In total, 44 new canopy trees are proposed, and additional streetscape improvements are provided, including widening sidewalks along both Golfing Green and Josie to 8 feet in width, and some enhanced pavement throughout the site, providing access from the units to these sidewalks. This is a closer view of the pocket park. You can see that a variety of landscaping and trees are proposed, as well as some seating amenities. And the Farmers Branch Comprehensive Plan does designate this site as both moderate density residential and mixed use on the future land use map. Both of those designations do include townhomes as a recommended development type for the site. And the site is also located within the Four Corners Catalyst area identified by the comp plan, which is centered around the intersection of Valley View and Josie. The development is consistent with the expectations for the Four Corners Catalyst site, including improved streetscapes, open space, and diverse housing options. And then on January 11th, zoning notification letters were mailed to surrounding property owners, and no written response has been received. Staff does recommend approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks again, Sarah. Commissioners, any questions for staff? It's my understanding the applicant is here as well.
Yes.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Okay, if the applicant wouldn't mind to step forward, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, Tom Cusick, 13901 Midway Road, Farmers Branch.
Thank you. And commissioners, questions? Good.
Mr. Cusack, can you give us a brief overview, for example, about homeowners associations, safety and security, proposed price level of the units, anything else you may want to tell us about marketing points for that particular property?
Obviously it's to be determined. We've been working on this project for quite some time with the city to try to get approval. With the fluctuation in market and commodities, what pricing is doing in my business, it's hard to say what our price point is going to be. We've obviously got something in mind that we think is going to be cost effective that we can present to potential buyers. This is going to be a for-purchase project, but to be able to pinpoint a specific dollar per foot or price point, I can't have that for you today. I don't even know exactly when we'll be able to break ground until we get through this process and many other.
Okay, and that's fine. Are we going to have a homeowners association here?
Yes, there will be. Yep.
Okay. I know that you build really quality homes,
Thank you.
and I'm expecting you to do the same thing here. And in case I have to buy one of them.
No, our goal here is not to, we obviously have built a brand and a reputation that we are proud of. We continue to look to pursue and move forward with that within the Farmers Branch community. I'm not looking to dilute anything from what we currently do. Anything we put out in the marketplace that has our brand on it's going to be something that we can all be proud of in the community. So there's not going to be anything that changes on this. We're not going to cheapen our product or sacrifice quality for something. We're going to continue to improve the community and the neighborhood the best we can and tie into our nice new glow park that we've got now.
And that's pretty much what I wanted to hear you say. Is that alley to the south of the property, are your residents going to be able to access that? I'm more concerned about the public access in that alley coming in from the west side. I mean, has any thought gone into that process in your?
A lot. You brought up security originally with it. I mean, ideally, if I had my first choice, this would be a gated community in that area, but that's not something that's going to be able to be done with the city. My second option would be that I would not have the alley accessible because it's considered a grading and drainage easement per the plat. But in order to be able to move forward with this, we're going to make that accessible to the rest of the community. It's really something that's not a street. It's not I mean, it's not officially marked as an alley. It's a grading and drainage utility easement is what it is labeled as. So, at this point in time, accessibility will be open. There's access points in between some of the buildings, so they're not completely joined all along Golfing Green to allow access back and forth through the park as well.
There's a gated community on the southwest corner of Valley View and Marsh, across from the police station. I mean, when you mentioned the city won't let you do something like that, have you addressed that with the people here at the city?
Oh, yeah, we've had lots of conversations about it. At this point, it's not moving forward and not a part of our plans.
I don't understand why there would be an objection to letting you do that.
I think there's some concerns maybe with that particular project and some street maintenance that occurred that the HOA was unable to fund at one point in time in that particular community. I don't know exactly all the details, but
I mean, I think it'd be the perfect spot for a gated community, just like we're talking about.
While I appreciate your comments, I don't think that's currently an item up on the agenda.
Get information.
Can speak to that a bit in terms of gating the property. The concern is not necessarily this townhome development being gated, it's the access that currently exists to that alley. And let me back up a little bit. So you can see all of these homes along Golfing Green Drive do have rear access to the alley, and currently the entry point on the east side of the alley is within the subject property. So it's an existing access point that is being removed with this development, and we'd like to see access maintained for those homeowners. In terms of people cutting through the alley, I wish I could zoom out a bit. You can see there's a street connection at the end of Golfing Green Drive, and so likely vehicle traffic would just go along Golfing Green rather than through the alley. But the city's concern is not necessarily this being a gated community.
Do the homes along that street have alley-facing or street-facing garages?
Alley facing.
So that is a heavily used alley for egress and entrance to their homes.
Correct.
I believe most of those to be additions. I don't believe that those were built originally with the actual duplexes that were built there. I believe most of those are additions, or they're carports or porte-cocheres, something along those lines. Many of them are not built in or attached. They're all detached structures.
What's the square footage range of these properties?
We're anywhere from 2,200 to 2,400 square feet. Our plan is to accommodate for an elevator in it as well, so we will have a common closet basically on each floor that we would option it, for folks. If they wanted to add an elevator, we could have that as well. So we're thinking about multi-generational here. It's not just, there's a lot of stairs to climb potentially, so we do have that option for folks as well.
What's your expected build-out time to completion or various phases, et cetera?
We hope to, I would really like to break ground this year. So we've got a lot of dirt to move. We've got some demo to take care of as well. As you see, the structure right now is how everything exists. The 3 duplexes are still there. The former Edward Jones building or bank, however you know that building, is currently still exists. So, I would love, just for tax implications for myself, just to get everything to dirt so I don't have improvements sitting on them this year. Then with the efforts of worst case scenario breaking ground the 1st of 2025. And we'll see how this is going to line out with once we are able to push dirt and get our streets in. But the build out on this should not be more than a year.
Great.
Thank you.
Any further? Mm-hmm.
And so do you have an agreement in place with the city to purchase that property?
That's correct.
Is that just contingent on city council approval?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further questions? All right, thank you so much.
Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
All right. This is a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing. And again, anyone wishing to speak, we ask you to be courteous and cordial, 3 minutes. And also, I would appreciate a citizen comment form just for our records.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Evans, 3047 Randy Lane. My parents have lived at 13521 Rawhide Parkway since '87. This lot, the development of it, to answer Mr. Froelich's question or concern is, if you were to put in a wall, a gated community, then that would be essentially the only area along this openly accessible, like, thoroughfare with the parks and the creek and everything that would have a wall right in front of it. So I don't know how well that would be received by the rest of the citizens in that community. I saw that it was 3 stories possibly. This site is pretty steeply graded. I want to say there's like a 20-foot gradation change from the south lot to the street facing area. And so I was curious as to how the how the soils and everything would be moved, and if 3 stories at the top part of the lot overlooking the park would be something that needed to be addressed by the citizens if they wanted them to be that tall. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments.
I can speak a bit. She's absolutely correct about the topography change on this site. It is about a 20-foot drop from the rear of the property to Golfing Green Drive. And even on the existing homes, you can see that grade change between where the house is built and the sidewalk level. And so the applicant is proposing a series of retaining walls. You can see them in blue on the site plan. That would help adjust for those grade changes.
Great. Thank you so much. Any additional comments from citizens? All right, seeing none. Commissioners, we have an item before us.
I will make a motion to approve it as it's been submitted.
Great, thank you.
I'll second that.
Second, any further discussion on the item? All right, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that carries. This will go to City Council.
February 20th.
All right, thank you, with our recommendation for approval. All right, next up, item D2, conduct a public hearing and consider the request to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance by amending Article 2, zoning districts and unit uses, Section 2.4, permitted uses, by amending subsection C, use table, to add mobile food unit as permitted in specified districts, by amending Article 5, by adding Section 5.8, mobile food unit overlay districts, and by amending Article 7, definitions, Section 7.3, definitions of uses, by deleting the definition for mobile food preparation vehicle and adding a definition for mobile food unit, and take appropriate action. Thank you, Lily.
Good evening, Commissioners. Lily Sutton, planner. My apologies. So I know we talked in study session about some standards and ideas that we had for mobile food units. And now tonight we're going to present that draft ordinance to you. So I'm just going to give a kind of a brief overview of what changed in those discussions. So just a brief timeline. In September, the House Bill 2878 took effect and therefore made mobile food units under the purview for health under the purview of Dallas County instead of the city. With that, we amended Chapter 26 back in October. And with that amendment, there's now a gap in kind of the enforcement and regulations regarding food trucks. You might remember, we did have a discussion in study session in November about some of the proposed standards. We also had a discussion in December with City Council, and they had some recommendations that you'll see in this presentation tonight. And obviously today we're doing the public hearing and then hopefully going to City Council in February. So kind of the basic overview of the top 3 comments that we really wanted to address, and we were kind of repetitive themes in our discussions, were expanding areas beyond the entertainment overlay. We have added 3 new districts and several sub-districts within those as well, to be a little bit more inclusive to kind of all of the districts in these areas within Farmers Branch, as well as we started to clarify the different types of events, made sure that those requirements and those regulations were a little bit more easy to understand and were a little bit more defined. And another topic that we heard come up is push carts, and we heard the general feedback of excluding push carts from mobile food definitions, which we followed. And so the updates that we made to the ordinance based on that feedback is that we now, like I said, we included 3 new areas and several sub-districts within those areas. So that way we kind of have east, west, central, kind of all areas of the city, all based on both the alcohol on premises overlay as well as the beer and wine overlay and the comprehensive plan to make sure that these areas are able to handle and would be, food trucks would be, and mobile food units would be a good asset to these areas. And then we also created a location permit section. This was something that we discussed generally in our last discussion, but we have it a lot more fleshed out now. And a lot of these measures are supposed to be in an effort to make sure that these regulations are being met. And this is kind of our enforcement way. And then we also added specific statutes requiring on what would qualify as an exception. So we fleshed those out a little bit more and defined those a little bit better, as well as updating our definition to clarify what would be considered a mobile food unit and that exclusion of push carts. So I know you have the map is a little small and out of scope a little bit. So some kind of more specific and zoomed in frames would be this area of Mercer Boardwalk, the Mustang Station area, as well as the Four Corners area, and then finally that entertainment overlay, which would just be its own tract as District 4. So some of these standards are relatively similar to what we discussed last time, but basically they'd have to meet the definition listed below. They would have to be operating within the mobile food unit overlay district, and I will specify that this is for mobile food units that want to repeatedly operate and go into an agreement with a commercial property. So this wouldn't be for a singular event, or it would be something that would be repetitive and, again, an actual business kind of relationship. We would also want this to be in addition to a primary business, so that business would have to have a valid and active CO, so they couldn't be on a vacant lot or parked on a place that, there wasn't a business actually operating. This is an accessory and something to add to kind of the landscape of the city, not to be the primary business. And then we also, again, like I said, these are for businesses that want to go into a relationship. So it's not for a singular event, but regular attendance. And again, a valid location permit would be required. So they'd have to meet all of those standards listed in that as well as their parking standards. And then for our definition, we are using a version of the state's definition. The only difference is that we excluded push carts in this definition, which the states included push carts as theirs, but based on our feedback, we have decided to exclude that as push carts are not as structurally attached to that one location. So it feels less of an accessory use and more of a different expansive use. And then some of the additional standards, these are some that would be covered by the location permit as well as the county health permit that they would now have to get, would cover some of these standards, like going back to a commissary every night. And then some, again, are standards that we would have in our location permit. So, for example, any spaces taken up by a mobile food unit would count against that parking space requirement. So they'd have to make sure that they meet that minimum still, even with those spaces taken up. And then how we're kind of planning to do that is with that application, we're expecting people currently with these proposed standards to submit a parking diagram, an aerial shot, something that locates both where the mobile food unit will be as well as where the restrooms in relation. We're currently having a maximum of 100 feet between the primary business and the mobile food unit to verify if there's multiple suites on a property. We want to make sure that the business owners that are not in agreement with the mobile food unit are not having their facilities kind of overrun by patrons of the food truck. And then we're also requiring a copy of all required permits, so that could be a fire permit under certain circumstances, as well as the county issued health permit, which again, a lot of these kind of over and very general regulations would fall under, like the commissary. And then, as I said earlier, we fleshed out our our exceptions a little bit more. So we've kept with the city-sponsored events authorized through the Parks Department and their agreement. They have a very extensive list and agreement process through there, and we don't want to impede or kind of conflict with their standards, as well as the fire department, which is why we have it listed here as public events authorized through the fire, police department, or council resolution, and as well as private events closed to the general public on private property. So this could be something like a private party at a residential property that's a singular event and they're meeting all of these standards. They're not operating on a right of way, or something like a business that wants to have a food truck only for their employees at a private event for them as well. And then just an overview of our notification process. As of January 12th, we did send out about 1,300 zoning notification letters via the mail to surrounding property owners, as well as posting zoning notification signs in all the areas the same day on that 12th. And then as of today, January 22nd, 2 written letters of support have been received. And then in terms of our comprehensive plan recommendation, the comp plan designates all of these areas that are included in the overlay as mixed use and on the future land use map, and also includes multifamily, retail, office, and entertainment uses, so places that draw people in. And we find that the comprehensive plan would support food trucks going in these areas. And then finally, staff also recommends the approval of the proposed zoning amendment to the CZO. And then I will open that up for any questions.
Great. Thanks again, Lily. Commissioners, any questions for Lily?
I'm excited about this. I think it's a great idea. I did have a question regarding you mentioned that they have to return to the commissary every night. It comes to the question of permanence. Can they leave the vehicles overnight in that location if they have an agreement with the business owner, or?
So no, sir. They would not be able to leave it overnight, not necessarily by the city standards, but by the county. The county requires that they go back to the
So if they
county.
had like some
to
weekend
come
event, they'd have to take it back.
They would still have
and
to
then
take it
come back
back.
the next day.
Yes, sir.
And then second question and last question is, there's various permits that are needed here. Are those permits going to be displayed on the actual food truck itself? So you can see that, yeah, they have the permit to be here and can enforce that code enforcement aspect, or not?
Yes, we're expecting that a requirement of the location permit is that they do post
Display
that permit
on the-
actively,
on the truck
as well
itself.
as the code enforcement will also have access to the database where those are stored. So they'll know if something is in agreement.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you again, Lily.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so we will open it to public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, again, please be courteous and cordial. 3-minute time limit. And just, you can come forward, say your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Bobby Diaz. I'm the owner of Odd Muse Brewing Company, and we fall within the proposed zoning area of this amendment. So I'm here to say that we are 100% in favor of the amendment. From the time we came to Farmers Branch over 4 years ago, our business model has always been to partner with local food vendors and food trucks. We've been doing it ever since with great success. We're in a pretty unique location where we're on the cusp of Dallas, Addison, Carrollton, and these mobile food units help attract customers from these neighboring cities. So it's pretty vital to our business. It's become vital anyway. And so, yeah, we're 100% in favor, and we just wanted to make that known. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other citizen comments? All right, seeing none. Commissioners, do you have an item in front of us?
Well, I would certainly make a motion to approve.
Okay.
as submitted.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of the amendment to the CZO as submitted.
I'll second that.
And second, any further discussion on the item? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that carries. And this will also, as you mentioned, go to City Council in February. All right, thank you so much. With that concludes our meeting. We will adjourn at 7:30 PM. Thank you all.